So I come here irregularly, and that's my fault. Just like, you know, taking care of a bicycle, everyone needs to keep it in good shape, but some people can just sit there and forget to grease the chain for ages and not take care of it until it's the last minute and things are starting to stick and go wrong. And I'm the latter kind of person.
Hello. Hi, Kara, come in. Hi, come in. Thanks, how's it going? All right, how are you?
So today I've brought in my Alexander 1103, and Heidi is taking out a dent and having a look at a valve, which is a bit sticky.
Kira's dent was here, where it had been pushed in when the slide was dropped. I'm using various tools to push it up from the inside, and the tapping is on top of a steel ball that is roughly the same size as the tube, and as you tap on it, it brings up the dent. And then hopefully it's invisible by the time we're finished.
As a human, you're just basically trying to perform at the highest levels, and the horn is a difficult instrument to be consistent on. With the horn, when you make a mistake, it's very apparent to everyone. On the flute, for example, if you don't quite get the note, then you'll notice, perhaps a colleague will notice, but the audience won't necessarily. I think the nightmare for any horn player is having a sticky valve. All of a sudden you can't play anything because the horn just stops working, basically. And to have that in the middle of a concert is a nightmare.
Well, we've always worked together as a couple since
we met.
Since we met. We met over the workbench. There's the romantic story. Repaired together, and then we ended up getting married as well.
And we try not to talk about the horn too much outside of work.
We try not to talk about the horn too much outside of work, or our children too much inside of work. There's not many couples that could work together 5 days a week.
No.
In the same room, sharing the job. I went through music college, loved the horn, but I knew I wasn't good enough to get a full-time job in a big orchestra. I'd always been good at fixing things, so I called up Paxman's, who were the UK main shop at the time, and asked them how they guys had got into it. And they said, well, we might have a space if you come down and we'll train you. Because I did an informal apprenticeship with them.
The right place at the right time.
Yeah, and then went on to be workshop manager, and then you came into the workshop as well. And then we split from them in due course because we wanted to do the repairing we wanted to do, and now we're building our own horns and providing them with some healthy competition.
And we started very small, didn't we? Because the kids were born and I did a lot of part-time and...
Yeah, it was manageable for one person at first, and then it became, we needed sort of an extra day a week, and now we're flat out full-time with two of us. On the recommendation of teachers, we were both working in the workshop as repairers, and you came as...
Student job, yeah, I was still a student at the academy, so that was probably about 20 years ago, something like that. There was a point where I was thinking of potentially going into horn building and repair when I was out of college, going on.
Well, you used to come out to the workshop in tea breaks, etc., didn't you?
Yeah.
See what was going on.
Well, I was to bring in the battered sausages and chips that we always ate.
Oh, Friday, fish and chips.
Yeah.
Yeah, I occasionally think of that. They were good chips.
And then you found yourself suddenly catapulted into stardom in the Philharmonia.
Yeah, about 10 years later.
After a little bit of slog.
Yeah, just a bit. I think catapulted isn't quite the word. Luke and Heidi are the best out there, and I was always sort of staring over their shoulder as I was eating my chips and Savoy sausage at lunchtime. They've been working with these instruments for decades, and they know them inside out. Do you remember that blob thing that people used to put on the first valve?
Yeah, we've got one if you'd like to try.
I mean, that's got to be a load of...
Had its day.
But people believed in that like it was some sort of cult. They're like, oh, I'll play much better with this blob of metal on. I'm like, what?
It starts to go into the witchcraft bit of fixing things.
It does.
Is there anything behind it? Or is it psychosomatic? Like if the player feels it's better, then that's enough.
Well,
because
yeah.
they'll play better.
Yeah, exactly.
But it might be nonsense.
When a musician comes to us, they want their horn to be working so they don't look like they're making a fool of themselves on the stage, don't they?
Quite often they're paired with their instrument, and if their instrument's not working, that's where they turn to us to see what we can do to give them that extra %.
And it's just such high pressure, that sort of work sometimes, particularly for players like Kira in the really big London orchestras.
We always joke about whether we should charge the repairing fee or the repairing and counselling fee. the surcharge, if you get the chat as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You get a sense of somebody when they have a sort of mechanical sympathy, when they understand how materials work, and also the attention to detail. I know that they won't ever cut corners and they take pride in what they do, and they will only let an instrument go out of this workshop if it's been repaired to the absolute best level that it can be.
All done.
Oh, excellent. Thanks.